As a new player, these are the rare champions you want to be getting to 6 stars, maxing out and investing into. Hello, my name is Midway and I hope you're having a wonderful day. Today we're going to be going over the current state of the game and what rare champions are actually worth investing into. So let's go ahead and find out. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. So we'll go over to the index and take it up from the top left and go through all the different factions. So let's start with the Bannerlords. Over here we are going to be finding two interesting champions that are going to be worth noting. First of all is going to be the support Valerie. She is a support, as I mentioned, who is going to be providing quite a lot of buffs. Her A1 is straight up just one swing, one attack. She is going to be increasing the duration of buffs on your allies, as well as decreasing the duration of debuffs, as well as finally placing a 25% increased attack buff on all allies for 2 turns, which is going to be combining very damn well with her last skill over here we're checking out, which is going to be a shield that's going to be placed on all allies, and then it's also going to be proccing a heal depending on the amount of buffs that they currently have, meaning that she's going to be providing an increased attack, she's going to be providing some heals, some shields, and finally she's also going to be increasing your allies' HP in the faction crypts. She builds well with speed, lifesteal, and you are going to be looking for some more speed and defense percentage on her gear, as well as really just looking to shine on the Doom Tower, with the Scarab Knight being where she really kicks off. All in all, she is a solid support. Next up, we have Tagoar, who's a little bit down to the bottom here, and she is going to be an attack champion, which has an interesting kit. She's going to be doing a little bit of turn meter control here, attacking one enemy 2 times, and each hit is going to be decreasing the turn meter guaranteed. Actually, it's critical hit, so there you go, you need to at least crit a little bit. And then she is also going to be doing an AoE decreased defense debuff, which obviously has a chance of applying or not. But yeah, this is definitely going to be putting her quite up there. That decreased defense, actually 60% decreased defense, is already very damn good for a rare champion. And then finally we have a little bit of synergy again between these two skills. She's going to be having a chance of applying a decreased attack debuff, and this is going to be, or rather this chance is going to be increased or rather doubled if she has the decreased debuff already enabled on those enemies. So you can see she applies decreased defense, and then she will also proc, or rather have a higher chance of proccing that decreased attack on the enemies if she already had the other debuff applied. So this is a very solid kit for a rare champion, while she also brings increased ally attack on the faction crypts, much more like we saw before with the increased HP. We have a little bit of an increased attack in this case. She's gonna be overall good in all faction wars content, as well as dungeon content and Doom Tower. She builds off of accuracy, speed, HP percent on the gear, and she wants to get some speed and accuracy going on for her set. Moving on to the High Elves, the first one you're gonna be looking for, and probably the best rare out there, is going to be Apothecary. He's going to be an insane support, providing a lot of very strong tools all in all. He's gonna have a random attack here, nothing too crazy on that one, but he's gonna also be providing a massive single target heal, which will be valuable in all forms of content. And the big thing about him is the speed buff on all allies for 2 turns. Also, of course, increasing the turn meter. That's what really makes him a strong champion, a strong support in particular. And he's also going to be bringing again a little bit of, well, the other buff we wanted, the defense. He's going to be bringing it in dungeons. Overall, he's a very solid dungeon champion. He's going to be building off of speed, defense percentage, and crit rate on his gear, and he wants to be going for the speed and immortal sets. And another very excellent rare champion also in the High Elves faction is Heres. She's gonna be your speed champion, really. She's gonna have a bit of a random attack and getting an extra turn if the target is killed. Pretty damn nice. But the special thing, of course, is the increased speed. She's gonna be removing debuffs from your allies and having a chance of placing that 30% increased speed on all allies. Again, all allies, really important. 30% increased speed is nothing to shy upon. And then she's gonna also be bringing overall just on the aura increased speed in dungeons, And finally, she has a little bit of a passive where she counterattacks the attacker where any ally is attacked, so she's going to be doing a lot of attacks overall. She's pretty damn solid against the clan boss in particular, and she's going to be building off of whatnot, speed, crit rate, crit damage, and she's gonna be going for the toxic and speed sets ideally. Now, somebody who's totally nuts is Reliquary Tender. You can see her in teams in the very high upper echelons of the game, I'm not gonna lie. She just brings so much for the budget of a rare champion. Let's look at it. So she's gonna having a chance of placing a decreased attack debuff on the enemy she's attacking, so that's already pretty valuable. But the important thing is she is going to be removing all debuffs from all allies and then healing everybody for 15%, and that's gonna be going on for 2 turns rather. And then she's also gonna be bringing a revive, and that's just already in a budget of a rare champion, so damn insane. You cannot really find that many revives in the game. She's just overall great, especially versus the spider, and she's gonna be building off of accuracy, speed, defense percentage on your gear, and for the sets you're gonna be going for shield and lifesteal. Finally, on the high elves category, we have Selena, who's also a very damn nice attack champion. So she's going to be all about HP burns. As we can see in her kit, she is gonna get a turn meter buff, or rather increase, every time she is going to be activating an HP burn debuff. And then let's see how this debuff activates. So she's gonna be attacking 3 times at random, and before attacking she's gonna be getting an increased accuracy buff on this champion, which is gonna help increase apply the debuff. And each hit is gonna be having a 50% chance of applying that HP debuff for 2 turns on the enemy. So you can get a max of 3 HP burn debuffs every time she gets this attack, every 5 turns. As you can see, that obviously is going to be reduced by leveling it up. And then what happens with the HP burn? Well, she has synergies, right? So she's going to be attacking all enemies with this one and having a 50% chance of increasing the duration of those HP burns on the enemy she hits, so she can just keep them going if she's lucky. And finally, she's going to be healing off of attacking with her A1, and she's going to be healing even more if she's doing so when the enemy has an HP burn. 20% healing off of her max HP just on the base kit is insane, so she has a lot of survivability on top of being quite a good attack champion. She's not that great overall, but she's good when there's a lot of targets. For example, in the spider, she's gonna be building off of speed, accuracy, attack percentage on the gear, and on the sets, speed and perception. Moving on to the Sacred Order, the first one we're gonna be checking is Athel. She's just going to be overall pretty damn good in dungeons, and she is going to be bringing the following. So she's gonna be increasing all ally HP if you choose her as the aura. She's also going to be applying a debuff, weaken debuff, which if you don't know what it does, you can scroll a little bit down here and we can see it's going to be increasing the damage received by the targeted champion between 15 and 25%, so that's pretty damn nice. As you can see, it's going to be a pretty high chance of applying that one at max potential. There you go, 25%. Then what else does she do? She's gonna be doing an AoE attack, increased chance of doing a critical hit, so that's not too bad. And then finally, we are going to be getting an extra turn if she is low HP. On top of that, she's also gonna be increasing her own attack and defense. As I mentioned, she's solid in dungeons in particular. She's gonna be building off of accuracy, speed, HP percentage, and on the sets you want lifesteal and cruel. Next up, Draconis. He's a very damn beefy healer. He's just pretty much going to be doing that, healing up your team. So what does he do? He's going to be attacking enemies, and that's going to be doing removing the debuffs on one of the allies, exactly the one with lowest HP, healing them up by a little bit of the damage inflicted. He is also going to be placing a shield on all allies equal to 50% of this champion's max HP, and then finally he's going to be doing a little bit more healing with just a single swing. So overall he's just beefy and he provides a lot of healing. He's very good in dungeons, especially against the Scarab Knight in the Doom Tower. He's going to be building off of speed, so he gets more heals, HP percentage, crit rate, and then finally he's going to be going for the shield and speed sets. Then we have a Castigator, who is going to be quite an interesting champion. He's going to be a bit of a tank. As you can see, he is HP based. And then he is going to be doing some provoking, right? He's going to be taunting the enemies, which will do so that they attack him, and then they will do less damage when they have the provoke debuff. Then he's going to be provoking those enemies with his A1, having a bit of a low chance of doing so, and only for one turn. But finally, the whole idea of this is that he is going going to also be doing a very important thing, which is equalizing the HP of all allies, and then he's going to be getting an extra turn, and then he's also going to be healing some, or the lowest HP champion at that point, for his 20% of his max HP. The HP equalizing is really the big thing. If you got anybody else who's going to be doing some healing, well, that's going to be the perfect scenario, so everybody's not full HP and you can get the max value out of that healing. And now we move over to the Barbarians. Let's scroll down a little bit here, and we're going to be checking out Soulbound Boyar. So she is actually pretty solid. She has some turn meter control on her attack over here, as you can see. She's also gonna have just a straight up very high chance of doing critical hits, because she has an additional 25% chance on any of her attacks to do an additional critical hit. But the real deal is here also has a 75% chance of fully depleting the target's turn meter. So that is really why you want her. Turn meter control, as well as just some solid damage. She's gonna be providing some crit rate increase in all battles, which is not bad whatsoever. And then every single other attack is gonna be increased additional chance of dealing a critical hit. This one in particular, very high chance of ignoring the target's defense, which is going to be doing just a lot of single target damage, very good for bossing. And then as well, attack just AoE, rather attack all enemies, again with that increased chance of critical hits. She's just great for dungeons, like most of the champions in particular. Really, their big value is just providing some sort of contribution to the whole group as a whole, right? Being a good pick for the team. So dungeons is really the best place for that, because it's a bigger team. And then she's going to be building off of accuracy, speed, HP percentage, and the sets for her are going to be lifesteal and speed. And already last for the Barbarians, we have the War Maiden, who's going to have an AoE big hit, which is going to be doing a lot of damage, believe me, and she's going to be having a very high chance of applying a decreased defense debuff. That's really the main attraction of this champion, that high decreased defense chance of being applied to the whole enemy team. She's also having a very high attack, single target damage attack here, where she's going to be buffing herself, and then if she crits with this, she's going to be getting a second hit, which is just, again, doing a lot of single target attack. And then finally, we have also a small chance of applying a poison, which is not going to be really anything really impactful, but she does have one. She wants to be going for accuracy, speed, HP percentage on the gear, and for the sets, stun and speed. On the Ogryn Tribes category, we are going to have a very, very good pick over here, which is going to be the Bellower. He's going to be your debuffer. Let's look at what he does. So first of all, he's going to have a 20% chance of applying a block active skills debuff on the enemies, which is basically going to impede the enemies from using their skills. Then we also have a very high chance here on all the enemies of getting a decreased speed debuff on them for 2 turns. And then finally, we also have even more debuffs. Another AoE attack with a very high chance of placing a decreased attack debuff as well as a decreased defense debuff, right? So you can have all the debuffs on this guy. Of course, they can all be cleansed by somebody who's able to do so, but if not, well, you got the enemy team completely screwed. And finally, he's also going to be bringing some speed to your team in the faction crypts. He's pretty damn good in dungeons, the Doom Tower, PvP. He's kind of good in almost all scenarios, really, for the entry level. Of course, he's a rare champion, and he's going to be going for speed, crit rate, crit damage. He's going to be going for the lifesteal and speed sets. And then on the opposite side of things, here we have the Jailer, who's going to be all about stealing buffs. So, first of all, he's going to be having a 40% chance of removing a random buff from the target. Straight up, gone. Next up, having a chance of stealing 2 random buffs from the target and hitting again if any of the buffs are stolen. So there you go, more synergy with that. Then another one where he's going to be attacking and increasing the damage he has, or he's going to be doing, if the target has no active debuffs, meaning that you take away all the debuffs and then you do more damage, and then he's going to be having an aura of increasing all allies' accuracy in dungeons by 20, nothing too bad. He's particularly great versus the Dragon, the Ice Golem, and the Scarab Knight, and he's going to be going for accuracy, speed, crit rate on the gear, and in the Savage and Cruel sets. And then for the Ogryn Tribes, we have Gear Grinder, who's going to be providing with a revive, already very valuable for the team. He is also going to be providing some AoE heals, as well as some single target heals for himself, as he's going to be doing a crit, so he's just going to be there sitting still, healing up, and then providing a revive, right? He's just an HP machine, as well as providing some increased HP in the faction crypts. He's not that great, but he's kind of good against the Ice Golem and the Dragon, and he wants to be building off of speed, HP percentage, defense percentage, and finally going for the speed and regeneration sets. Now, the lizardmen don't really have anything interesting going on for them, so we're going to be moving on to the skinwalkers. And over here, we're going to be finding Greybeard, who's going to be big, just a big, meaty tank. So what does he do? He's going to be able to provoke the enemies, meaning he's going to be taking aggro. He also has a chance of freezing the enemies. It's an AoE attack, and he's going to be scaling off of defense, that is the damage scaling. And then he's also going to be having a shield on himself, as well as a buff for some counter-attacking, and then this buff cannot be removed off of him. So this is also going to be scaling off of defense, and as you can see, you just have a taunting, big, meaty kind of thing who's going to be standing there with a shield, not really being able to be removed, and then he also can freeze the entire enemy team, not too bad. He also has an increased defense aura for dungeons. So this overall kind of just makes him great for Doom Tower as well as some dungeons, and then he's going to be very good with accuracy, speed and defense percentage on his gear and wanting to be building the speed and accuracy sets. And on a somehow similar note, we have a Gnarlhorn, who is also going to be a tank, and he is going to be doing the following. He's going to be able to place an unkillable buff on himself for 2 turns once he's just able to not be killed for a little while, which is basically perfect when he is also going to straight up being able to taunt the enemies as well, right? He has a chance of doing that as well as applying that increased defense buff on himself, just more tankiness. And finally, he has an attack which is going to be scaling off of his lost HP, right? So the less HP he has, the more that he's going to be doing. And finally, he's going to be providing again with some more defense increase on the aura, just some meaty faction over here, guys. Now this one really has some uses, especially in the Magma Dragon. He's great, as well as in all the dungeons, and the Shogun Grub, he's just kind of nuts over there. And then he's going to be building off of accuracy, speed, defense percentage, just the classics for tanks, and finally accuracy and frost sets. And then we have Burn, who is going to be a support who does some little bit of healing, as well as increasing the turn meter for your allies. He is also going to be placing an increased resistance buff on your allies, as well as a shield. And he is also going to be placing a debuff on the enemy, right? So he does a little bit of everything, debuffing, shielding, and healing, as well as turn meter increasing. So overall, he's just a little bit solid, just not too great, but solid, because he provides a lot of tools, which kind of makes him a decent pick for the clan boss in particular. And he is going to be building off of accuracy, speed, HP percentage, as well as going for the Guardian and Protection sets. Now the Orc faction is pretty bad, and there is only one champion worth mentioning over here, and that is going to be Ironclad. He has a bit of an interesting kit. The main thing about him is that when he is healed, he's going to be doing an AoE attack to all the enemies based off any surplus heal he receives, right? And he's going to be doing damage equal to 50% of that surplus heal. So the more you heal him, the more damage he's going to be doing. Then he also provides a heal reduction debuff on the enemy, which is basically 100% heal reduction. One enemy will definitely be screwed if they need any healing, but it's nothing too great, it's an A1. And then he is also going to be placing a 25% increased attack buff on all allies. That's kind of what really makes him, as well as removing random debuff from all allies. So this attack actually kind of just really puts him out there. The overall surplus healing will only really work if you got a lot of healing going on, and I don't really think it's going to be popping off too much, but who knows, could be. And then he's also going to be getting an aura increase for the HP in all battles. He's just kind of good in the Doom Tower, nowhere really else, to be fair, but he's kind of okay in the arena, depending on your comp, of course. Finally, he builds off of HP percentage, crit rate, accuracy, and then he goes for the Savage and crit damage sets. Demon Spawns have 2 good picks in particular, so let's go ahead and check them out real quick. The first of all is going to be the Fellhound, who is kind of interesting because of the block damage buff on an ally for 1 turn, meaning they are going to be taking 0 damage out of that. Then it's also going to be increasing, or rather decreasing, the speed of the enemies for 2 turns. It's a debuff that's going to be applied over to your enemies with a little bit of a low chance, but that is a decent amount of decreased speed. And then the main thing, of course, as well, is going to be this kind of interesting skill where he's going to be doing an AoE heal for all your allies, as well as applying a reflect damage debuff, or rather buff, on your allies. Don't get me wrong there, which is overall going to just be a solid kit. Then he's also going to be bringing some ally increased defense on the faction crypts. And he's great on the Fire Knight and the Magma Dragon. That's pretty much where he shines. He also is really gonna be going for speed, defense percentage, crit rate, as well as going for the speed and lifesteal sets. The other solid choice for the demon spawn is Marquez or Marquise, whatever you pronounce this. She is gonna be having a big chance of freezing one enemy. Then she is also gonna be applying a weakened debuff on all the enemies, as well as doing more damage on top of already what the weakened debuff does. She's gonna be doing even more damage to enemies that are weakened. And then she is also gonna be placing a decreased attack debuff on one enemy, so she kind of just debuffs the whole enemy team, as well as providing a stun, really, the freeze. And then she is also going to be increasing the defense of your allies in the faction crypts. She's pretty good in the Doom Tower, the Dark Fae, as well as the Dragon. That's where she really shines. She's also pretty decent in Arena. I haven't really mentioned Arena too much, but that's a whole different world. And then she wants to be going for crit rate, speed, and defense percentage on the gear, as well as for the Savage and Fatal sets. Now, the Undead Hordes have a few interesting options, and let's start with Doomscreech, who is right here. Now, the real big thing about him is this attack in particular, where he's going to be boosting the turn meter of your allies for quite a little while, as well as placing a 60% increased defense buff on all your allies. That is a lot of defense. He is also going to be placing a big shield on himself, which is going to be increased. Actually, his damage is going to be increased when he does this attack based off of his max HP, but that shield is not too bad. And then finally, he's also going to be placing a decreased accuracy debuff on one enemy if he actually lands this debuff. Overall, he's actually got a pretty solid kit, and he also brings some increased HP over here in the faction crypts. He's pretty good in many places: Arena, Clan Boss, Fire Knight, Ice Golem. That's where he really shines, and you want to be going for accuracy, speed, HP percentage on him, as well as the speed and lifesteal sets. Now, we have an interesting champion over here who is called Seducer, and of course he looks a little bit like a vampire, and that is the theme of his kit. The real deal about him is that he is going to be placing an ally protection buff for 50%, meaning that 50% of the damage that your allies are going to be taking, and that is direct damage, not AoE damage, he's going to be taking that damage instead, and he's going to be placing a block damage buff on himself, meaning that for one turn he's pretty much going to be immune. So that is pretty damn simple. He's only going to be available with Tempress on the same team, so as a little bit of a synergy. When she's there, this skill will be active. Then she also has a chance of applying a sleep debuff. She has a chance of placing a decreased attack debuff on all enemies, as well as placing an increased defense buff on all allies, as well as a block debuffs buff on all allies. So he brings quite a solid kit, especially with the block damage. That's really the whole thing that makes him. You gotta have Tempress in the build, or rather the team, for this to actually work. So this would really kind of be what you want for. He's a tank. Basically, he's a tank who's also going to be providing some debuffing, as well as providing some HP on the aura. So this kind of just makes him good in all dungeons, as well as the Doom Tower and the Eternal Dragon, Frostbiter, Scarab Knight. He is kind of just great everywhere if you manage to pull off a good use of this skill in particular. And then he's going to be building off of accuracy, speed, defense percentage, stun, and lifesteal on the sets, right? He's going to be a tank, basically. And next up, we have a boss killer over here, Frozen Banshee. She's actually really damn great versus the clan boss and the dragon in particular, but what she does is she applies poisons. So she's going to be having a big chance of applying poisons onto the enemy, especially if the enemy has the poison sensitivity debuff, which she is gonna be applying over here with this other attack for 2 turns. Then she also is going to be filling the turn meter of your allies by 2% for each debuff on the target when she attacks them, right? So that's great if you are playing against bosses, stacking poisons, just having more and more poison, more duration on them, on the enemy, right? And just having a big bunch of debuffs, and that's going to be filling up your allies' turn meter overall. That's kind of the synergy of how she works. She also increases accuracy for allies, which is great. And with all this in mind, she goes for accuracy, speed, and defense percentage on the gear, as well as lifesteal and speed on the sets. And next to the Frozen Banshee, we have her sister in the lore. She's actually her sister, that is Grave Chill. And these two girls' kits are pretty much just synergetic as much as they can be. So this one in particular, she's going to be applying poisons, and that's straight up what it does. Then you are also going to be having a big chance of applying a decreased defense on the enemy, as well as having a pretty high chance of applying another higher decreased defense debuff, right? So it's going to be double the decreased defense if the target has a poison on them, right? So you want to have poisons, and that is going to be applying a decreased defense debuff on them, excuse me. And finally, she is also going to be having another poison application, which is going to be even bigger, right? So it's going to be a bigger poison if the enemy has poison sensitivity. As you can see, there is no poison application, or rather poison sensitivity debuff application on her kit. And that's kind of the idea. She needs to be placed around somebody who does, like her sister, the Frozen Banshee. So as I mentioned, she's supposed to be going together with the Frozen Banshee, and that's why she excels in any form of content where the Frozen Banshee does, the clan boss, and the dragon in particular. And she's gonna be going for kind of the same thing: accuracy, speed, defense percentage, as well as lifesteal and speed. Now it's time for the Dark Elves, and we are gonna be starting it off with probably one of the better picks overall for all the rare champions, and that is Cold Heart. She's an attack champion who has this kind of insane skill where she is going to be decreasing the turn meter, which again is one of the better values you can have in the game, together with reviving, as well as having a big chance of increasing a critical hit. And then the damage is going to be increased based off of the enemy's max HP, meaning it's going to be doing a lot of damage versus bosses who are very beefy. Now she's also going to be having a big chance of placing a decreased accuracy debuff on the enemies, as well as a poison if they have heal reduction, and that heal reduction is going to be coming off of her A1, where she's going to be attacking 4 enemies at random, and they are going to be unable to heal pretty much. So as I mentioned, she is insane versus bosses, providing quite some damage, as well as the turn meter reduction, which are both insane values for bossing in particular. And she wants to be going for accuracy, speed, and getting over all the way up to 70% crit rate if possible, to guarantee a crit on that last hit, as you can see. And then she wants to be going for the speed and accuracy sets. Next up we got Kale, probably the best pick for the starter champions, and she is going to be doing a lot of poisoning. She has a big chance on his A1 of applying a poison. He also has another chance of applying a poison here, a little bit of a stronger one, on a lot more champions because it's attacking 4 times at random. And then finally we got the big AoE heavy hit. We all know he's going to be having an increased critical hit chance on it, as well as filling his own turn meter by 25% for each enemy kill. That's why he's so good for speed farming the campaign and leveling up your champions, because he can just get this attack out over and over and over, as well as providing some ally HP increase buff on all battles. So as mentioned, he's pretty great against just the overall campaign and being able to farm. He's also very good against the dragon and the spider. And then finally we have, well, his stats would be accuracy, speed, defense percentage, and he wants to be going for lifesteal just to keep on living as always, and speed. Moving on, Painkeeper is another solid champion who's going to be providing quite a lot of stuff. She's going to be decreasing the cooldown of all ally skills by 1 turn. That's really what really makes her pretty strong. She is also gonna be healing up your entire team by 50% of her max HP. Not too bad whatsoever, being that she's an HP based champion, as well as just filling her own turn meter so she can keep getting stuff going on. And then of course she has an HP increase aura on the faction crypts. She's very great on the clan boss, as well as just overall all the dungeons really. And then she is gonna be building for speed, defense percentage, crit rate, and going for the speed and lifesteal sets, so that she could just keep on getting more of these one skill. Spirit Host is an overall strong support champion. She's gonna be bringing an increased attack buff for all allies for 2 turns on all allies. That's 50% increased attack. That's pretty damn nice. She is also going to be placing a block debuffs, or rather a block debuffs buff on all allies, as well as removing all those debuffs. So she already provided quite some attack, some debuff removal, as well as just a little bit of sustain on her A1. But you're not really bringing her for that. You're really doing so for the debuff removal and the increase on the attack. And she also brings some speed in all battles. She's nothing crazy, but she's okay versus the Nether Spider, and she is gonna be going for speed, HP percentage, lifesteal, and speed. And then finally we have a Paragon, who is a bit of a tank. He is going to be doing a little bit of turn meter reduction, although it's nothing crazy, it's only 10%. He is also going to be placing an unkillable buff on an ally, as well as increasing their attack for 2 turns. That is pretty damn great. And finally, he's also going to be placing 100% heal reduction on probably potentially 3 enemies, right? He's going to be attacking 3 times at random, as well as decreasing the attack of the enemies he applies this debuff to for 2 turns, which is overall not too bad whatsoever. This is quite some impactful debuffs over there. You kind of just really only want him for the Spider as well as Arena, but he's also okay in Doom Tower. Everywhere else, he's not good whatsoever. He's gonna be going for accuracy, speed, resist, and then finally for the sets, speed and accuracy. That is it for the Dark Elves. Now moving on to the Knights Revenant, we have a very strong bossing champion, and that is Renegade. Again, one of the better ones on the rare category, and the reason for that is she brings the Sacrificial Ritual, which is gonna be reducing the cooldown on all ally skills by 2 turns. But the catch about this is that she's gonna be taking a hit for 30% of her max HP every time she does this, even if she dies. So it's a pretty dangerous skill to be using, but you're definitely going to be benefiting a lot from affecting your whole team with this. Then she also brings some debuffing, some decreased speed, as well as decreased accuracy to the enemies. And then finally a heal reduction, 100% heal reduction, which could be great if applied onto whoever really. And then for Iora, she brings a lot of resistances on any kind of battle, which is honestly great. So she really shines on the Shogun Grove specifically, but overall in any dungeon she is great. And then we are going to be going for accuracy, speed, HP percentage on her, and finally speed and lifesteal on the sets. Of course, all this makes sense because all you want to be getting out is more of this one particular skill. And next we have the Coffin Smasher, who is all about this one particular passive skill, reducing all AoE damage taken by 5% really on any situation where there's a lot of this happening. For example, the Ice Golem, pretty much any boss really is going to be pretty damn valuable. He is also going to be bringing an HP burn, nothing too crazy, as well as a decreased attack. That's 50% decreased attack for 2 turns, right? So he's gonna do that 3 times, 15% chance every time. That is not too bad. So you really kind of just bring him to reduce the AoE damage taken. This really makes him great on the clan boss, as well as the Frost Spider, the Fire Knight, the Ice Golem, as I already mentioned before. And he's gonna be going for accuracy, speed, HP percentage, and then going for a lifesteal and speed sets like many other champions we already reviewed. Now the dwarves have a lot of interesting picks, and let's start it off by looking at one in particular who's gonna be great for the clan boss, and that is Bulwark, right? So the whole thing about him is that when he is attacked, he's going to be having a chance of extending the duration of all the debuffs on the attacker, right? So he's going to be applying debuffs. First of all, he's going to be applying a weaken debuff, and then he's also going to be applying an HP burn debuff, right? So those 2 burns, or rather those 2 debuffs onto one enemy, in particular the clan boss, are going to be very effective. He's also going to be bringing some defense increase in all battles, and it's kind of also going to be great versus the Frost Spider. Finally, you want to be going for accuracy, speed, and defense, as well as the sets of Perception and Stalwart. We also have Master Butcher, who's a little bit like Bogoth, and that's an epic champion which we haven't talked about, but what is special about him is that he's going to be healing all allies equal to the amount of damage taken, not working against bosses, but that's going to be making him very interesting, in particular versus the Dreadhorn, where the bombs don't count as the boss. So he's going to be healing everybody for a lot of just straight up all the damage taken from each one of the bombs. It's going to be converted into AoE healing. He also has straight up 2 provokes, which are pretty great for him as a tank. Kind of, he's a bit of a support as mentioned over here, but he's kind of just going to be working as a tank with that provoke, as well as another provoke over here, and then buffing your allies with increased crit rate and increased attack. That's why he's kind of categorized as support, but overall he's just bringing a lot of nice stuff with the overall AoE healing. But again, he's still kind of useful in the situation that I already mentioned. He also has a revive when he dies, right? He's going to be reviving somebody else when he goes down. So all in all, you only want this guy for 3 three specific types of content. That is going to be the Hydra, the Dread Horn, that's the main thing you want him for, and the Magma Dragon. Everything else, scratch him out, is pretty damn bad. So he's going to be going for accuracy, speed, HP percentage, and then also for the speed and accuracy sets. We also have Dilgol, who's an attack champion who's going to be applying a lot of debuffs. He's going to be having a decreased speed debuff over here on one target, as well as a big AoE for attacking 2 times, and a big chance of applying a decreased accuracy debuff. And finally, he is also going to be having a big chance of applying a high decreased defense debuff. So overall, just a lot of nice stuff. He kind of should be a support pretty much, but he also is going to be doing quite some damage with his skills. So he's great in all dungeons, and he's going to be building off of accuracy, speed, crit rate, as well as the lifesteal and speed sets. Abir is a pretty solid support for the faction of the dwarves. He's nothing crazy, but he's going to be bring a little bit of poisoning, as well as decreasing attack and speed. Only decreasing speed if the target has a poison debuff on them, but the main thing is he's going to be bringing an AoE heal as well as a turn meter fill for all allies. So he's going to be great. He's going to be great in the crypts in particular, as well as the clan boss and the dragon. So you want to be building him with accuracy, speed, HP percentage, as well as the accuracy and lifesteal sets. Finally, for the dwarves, we have Kurthat, who's going to be pretty great in particular for bossing because of this one particular skill, where if he does crit, he's going to be having a chance of, or rather, if he crits, he will have a 100% chance of applying a decreased speed buff, which will in some occasions be detrimental to stopping the boss to actually filling up his turn meter. Then he is also going to be getting a turn meter increase on himself with a not that great of an attack, as well as increasing accuracy and decreasing defense. Right, he's going to be increasing the accuracy of your allies and decreasing the defense of the enemies. He gets a little bit of everything, but the real big deal about him is this big decreased speed debuff he applies. So he's kind of great for all dungeons, for bossing in particular, and he wants to be building with accuracy, speed, crit rate, and then going for the speed and lifesteal sets. Now that was a lot of dwarves. Let's move on to the Shadowkin, where in contrast there is only going to be one good pick, and that is going to be Odachi. The reason for that is because he's going to be bringing an AoE block debuffs buff for your allies, which is going to be great for scenarios like the Ice Golem, as well as also placing an increased defense buff on all allies. Everything else is just whatever. He has a bit of a provoke over here, as well as he can shield himself and be a bit of a meaty kind of tank. That's why he's a defense champion, and he also brings a defense increase aura. He's only really great versus a lot of AoE on the enemy bosses, of course, and that is versus the dragon and the Ice Golem. He wants to be building off of speed, HP percentage, defense percentage, and then going for the guardian and immortal sets to become a big beefy monster. Now to wrap it up, let's move on to the Sylvan Watchers or Sylvan Watchers. This is the last faction that we're going to be talking about, and first of all, it's going to be Tirlak, who is very valuable because of his Bale buff he's going to be providing, right? So Bale basically is going to be making so that your allies are not able to be targeted by the enemies. The Bale will be broken once they first use an active skill, but the only champion that will be left without a Bale when Tirlak uses it is himself, so he will be the only one able to be targeted by the enemy. The Bale also provides a damage reduction for the AoE damage taken, which is also going along with the theme of his passive, where anybody with a Bale is going to be taking less damage from skills. Then he also has a bit of a debuff over here with decreased attack on his A1, as well as a buff for himself, or rather all allies, with a bit of an increased speed for 2 turns. So it's a pretty solid kit overall, but more particularly because of the Bale mechanic. So this will come in pretty handy in content like the Doom Tower, the Spider, the Dragon, the Ice Golem, the Scarab King, and that's pretty much it. Everywhere else he is not too great. He's okay in arena, I've seen him a couple times, but nothing too crazy. He goes for defense percentage, HP percentage, speed on the gear stats, and then for the sets he goes for Defiant and Stalwart. Then we have Not, who's going to be great versus the Dragon and the Ice Golem, particularly because he's going to be doing a lot of AoE healing, as well as providing a big increased defense buff on all allies. He also brings a double resurrection for, yeah, 2 random allies and placing a shield on the revived allies for quite a while, and actually rather quite a meaningful amount, 20% of their max HP for 2 turns. And finally, he also has a chance of applying a decreased attack debuff. So overall, he's great for those bosses in particular, but just great because of that revive that is quite insane. And finally, he also brings speed on the faction crypts. You want to build him with HP, speed, defense, as well as protection and curing sets. Planan is going to be a very interesting champion for the Fire Knight, and that is because he manipulates speed a whole lot. So on his A1, he is going to be having a chance of stunning, nothing too crazy, but the main thing about him is that he is going to be having a big chance of reducing the turn meter by 5% of the enemy, and if they are also under a decreased speed debuff, this will be having an effect of 10% instead of 5%, so that's already quite meaningful. He can apply this debuff with this other attack, and that is pretty much the whole thing. He applies the debuff and then he goes off for that decreased speed attack. And then he also has a buff over here for 25% increased accuracy on all allies, and that's pretty much just going to be making him a pretty solid pick. But for that one specific situation in particular, overall he's pretty lackluster, besides if it was not for this decreased speed mechanics. And then he also has a chance of having an extra turn if he has a decreased speed debuff on 3 or more enemies. Yeah, that's not really going to be happening too often, and especially it's not going to be too valuable if you're only really interested in using him for the boss. Just in case you really want to be pushing the Fire Knight really far early on, you want to be building him with speed, accuracy, HP percentage, as well as the speed and perception sets. So that is going to be all the worthwhile rare champions and all the uses where they are worth actually using and how to build them. This is a pretty complete guide. If you're a new player and just get a random rare, go ahead and check out whether or not they are worth in the list if you already watched this video. All in all, that's all I got for you today, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Bye, see you.